Hi everyone, this is Samantha Owens and you are viewing my final oral exam for ESI 7210. I'm going into my 5th year of teaching, and like some of you, I'm in the thick of pre-planning right now, so my daily schedule has just been jam-packed trying to get ready for a school and grade change because like I mentioned before, I'm going from a pre-K teacher in a preschool setting to a 5th grade teacher at Panther Elementary, which is part of the Paulding County school system. All right, the agenda for my oral exam is pretty straightforward. I'll be starting with the course objectives that I felt resonated the most with me this semester, followed by my future plans as they relate to multicultural gifted education, and then some networking and collaboration opportunities that I plan to pursue. The first objective that I noticed a lot of personal growth in was recognizing prejudice and oppressive institutional structures in education that marginalize gifted students from culturally diverse backgrounds, specifically race, class, gender, and language issues. And I included an image of a black girl with tape on her mouth to visually represent those oppressive institutional structures that often hold children of color back from opportunities. And it really reminds me of Boykin's Afrocentric cultural styles and that oral tradition. In the text, Ford talks about oral tradition and how, quote, teachers may view these culturally different students as talkative, lacking tact, or otherwise rude and disrespectful. And I had a major aha moment reading about the Afrocentric styles, and I reflected back on how I was pretty ignorant to the fact that a student's culture can affect their behavior in class like that, and by making them conform to what I thought every student should behave like, I was essentially stripping them of their cultural identity in the classroom, which can lead to a major disconnect between teacher and student. So that leads into the second course objective, where I've evaluated my personal beliefs and professional practices in the classroom. I want culturally different students to feel like I'm attempting to understand where they're coming from and that I'm willing to be flexible and learn from them just as much as they'll be learning from me. And then my personal work that I got the most attached to in this course was about social class and poverty. I just got my roster for this year, and 13 out of 20 of my 5th graders were flagged in their profiles as being economically disadvantaged. And I feel like that segues into an issue I've been seeing on social media that I feel is poverty shaming some families. I've seen many teacher friends sharing a meme about buying Crayola over Rose Art crayons because Rose Art crayons suck, and Crayola is obviously the best brand, and we all know Crayola is a more quality crayon. But I was at Walmart last night, and Crayola is 17 more cents a box, and so now families living in poverty are given this dilemma. Do they buy the 50-cent box of Crayola or save a little money going with Rose Art and run the risk of their kid being made fun of for having those loser crayons? And when you have more than one kid in school, those savings could be important to them. It seriously sounds like these teachers would rather them not contribute any school supplies at all if they're going to be the cheap brand. And this, of course, has definitely made me more sensitive to the issues surrounding students living in poverty, and I feel like I have a perspective now that these teachers sharing that meme lack. Because, for most of us, it's not a big deal to spend a little more for some name brand crayons, but educators need to be more sensitive to the fact that buying school supplies can be a real source of stress for a lot of families. So for my future plans revolving around multicultural gifted education, number one is to infuse multiculturalism into lessons and share them with my team. There are 4 of us, and it was decided that one person was making the entire team's lesson plans for reading and writing, one is doing math, one is doing science, and then one does social studies, and we all share plans. And while multiculturalism can and should be infused into all content areas, I plan to volunteer for the social studies lessons because I feel like there's a huge opportunity there for providing a multicultural perspective on world events that in the past have typically only been taught through a Caucasian lens. And I want to adhere to Banks's curriculum model. And when I did some self-reflection, I realized that in the past I've only ever done the contributions and additive approach to sharing, to multicultural integration into lessons. So I plan to push myself to include more transformative and social action lessons. And then, of course, since we're sharing, I'll not only be integrating multicultural education into just my class, but to all the 5th grade classes at my school. And then my second future plan is to be more receptive to non-traditional manifestations of gifted traits in multicultural students. So I have 0 students on my roster who have been identified as gifted. And I've complained to Haley about this, but I'm seeing it as an opportunity really to put into practice being able to recognize giftedness in students that might not make the cutoff for those standardized tests of mental ability. I know in Catano's article on gifted children living in poverty, she explains that poverty can mask gifted traits, and especially those who are poor and culturally different. And I have about 7 students that applies to. So this is my most diverse class to date, and the old Samantha, the fresh out of college Samantha, would have been very nervous about it. But through my master's program and this course especially, I am genuinely excited now to put into practice all the things I've been learning. All right, and so like I said, I am at a new school, so I'm meeting tons of new people, but 2 people I've yet to reach out to are the gifted teacher and school counselor. I think I'm having hesitations about it because I'm still trying to make a good impression at my new school, and I don't really know how to get right down to business with these virtual strangers, I guess, and I worry that they'll be like, who is this chick with all these ideas? Does she think she can do my job better than me? But one big thing on my agenda is to examine the makeup of the gifted population versus overall school population, and then to recommend non-biased assessments and non-test instruments. My school is 60% economically disadvantaged and 20% Black and 8.7% Hispanic. So I'm really itching to take a look at the statistics and share some recommendations about non-biased assessments, non-test instruments, and maybe educating the teachers on the referral process and how to look for giftedness in multicultural students. I'd also like to talk with the counselor and see what type of counseling is already in place for low-income and multicultural students at our school. And I plan to talk with her about collaborating on some social emotional lessons and just sharing resources with one another. So I'm still trying to get up the courage, but really I just need to start with, hey, I'm new here. My name is Samantha Owens. Nice to meet you. And then work up to those topics over the next month or so. So those are my ideas for networking and collaboration. And I thank you for taking the time to listen to my oral exam.